Good morning, friends. Welcome to WordofGord OBE Journal 2017. And we will just move smoothly along. Well, it would help if I said the word smoothly better. Couple of interesting situations I like to discuss today. As prompted by the movie Beatrice at Dinner, which is on current release, where the Salma Hayek plays a healer, a wounded healer. And a lot of you will be familiar with the archetype of the wounded healer. And I certainly am, as done some healing over the years, distance healing mainly, but hands-on as well. And in your out-of-body work, or your out-of-body curiosity that turns into out-of-body service eventually, you will do work that will be similar to healing. Not hands-on healing, but healing ignorance, healing suffering in the out-of-body state, with people who have carried their wounds and their sufferings with them. And many people do that. Many souls do that. And this film portrays a healer presented with situations in basically her social life that she can't handle, and meeting up with other souls that seem to be participating personally in the destruction of the environment and the pristine beauty of the world, developers particularly. And it's a very interesting study of this syndrome, and essentially she's part of an inner journey, an example of an inner journey, where the excitement, the discovery and the excitement that one can affect healing in some situations, not all, because of a variety of mysterious, circumstances. One doesn't always know why the healing takes place, and when it doesn't take place, or it doesn't seem to take place, one doesn't really know the reasons for that either. One can guess, one can make educated guesses. And I have arrived at, as others have, I've discussed this with other facilitators, that the healing, the client, the person that, the healee, doesn't really want to be healed, not on a soul level. They want the experience of the pain, the suffering, whether it's emotional or physical or psychological, to educate their soul. And regardless of what you try to do for them, they will pass on. And but there are the cases where healing is affected, and people, the healee returns to some semblance of normalcy and stability and health, gives one, the healer, a great feeling of being effectual, that the healing energy of the universe, which we all channel or can channel, is a real and be effective. And one can go through a phase of either being sort of messianic and wanting to heal everyone, and because when one affects healing, it is often quite effortless. There are various hurdles to get through, but when one gets through one's own ego hurdles and the fears and doubts of the healee, it is actually quite effortless, the channeling. It's not, doesn't take a lot of work at all. So one can fall for that illusion that one can heal everyone one sees or meets or touches, and or one can get, as the woman portrayed in this film, get completely sunk with the, what would you say, endless waves of people needing healed, people suffering, people ill, arriving at the center that she works at. No matter how much work you do, there's always more. And one can't help but feel that, doctors and nurses in the regular medical system would feel this way too and have to learn to cope with it. And she's not in, well, she works at sort of a hospice and healing center, and has her own inner wounds, as all healers do. That's all part and parcel of it. You're healing your own wounds as you're healing the wounds of others. So she cannot emerge out of the archetype of the wounded healer and ends her own life. I'm sorry to give that away, but it's important for what I'm trying to say. And so I think there's two things to be watched out for here. Is the excitement. Again, there's this excitement of the astral body and the experiences gained when one is in the astral body. It's very exciting. And the astral body is the body of desire and emotion, amongst other things. And to travel in it is very exhilarating. And the exhilaration and the excitements of the experience are the power behind it, what makes it so exciting, but also the danger of constantly ending it. You get too excited and you come back to your body. And all potential travelers have this experience. They keep getting shot back to their body until they learn to control it. And that can take quite some time. And then one might say, well, does that time really matter? Well, that's a good argument, and maybe it doesn't, but it does put people off. And so the extension of that is the excitement of doing this work, the retrieving, the healing, and can give one what you might say would be unrealistic expectations. You just want to help everyone, and you can't, basically. It takes a long while to realize that. And what you have to accept is that no matter of your own, the excitement of your own, shall we say, partial enlightenment and your own expanded abilities, there are millions of souls that are not at that level and probably will not be at that level during your current span of I am this personality incarnate and I am doing these things. Suffering is. It is part and parcel of the game, and you can't end it. You can't end suffering. You can't end despair. You can help a certain number of souls, just as, if I may be forgiven the the leap, Jesus helped a large number of souls, but he didn't help everybody. There's lots of many souls that are untouched by his personal vision, his personal great personal ability to channel the divine energy of unconditional love. You know, it's a deep theological argument. They would say, well, and Christian theologians will say his channeling of the unconditional love of the Christ energy onto the planet, which he, they would say happened in his lifetime a couple of thousand years ago, accelerated the evolution of the planet, raised the vibration of the planet. So in that way, it did sort of affect everybody that was incarnate on the planet. And that is a compelling argument, and I certainly wouldn't deny it. But uh, the way he affected devoted Christians is significantly more than those that were not followers. And the same with all the other major prophets and religions. I'm not elevating him above the other prophets, not at all. So on a smaller level, on a much smaller level on your own personal journey, you have to accept that you can help and assist and benefit some others, but not everyone. There's plenty of people in the lower astral that you'll never convert or boost or help climb up the ladder because they're too stuck where they are. And you can have a go, and you might sort of wiggle them out of their roots a little bit, and then several other situations or people will come along and do the same as time goes by. The illusion of time goes by, and that soul might eventually be freed. But you have to learn that you can't help everybody, and that you're just passing through, and you do what you can, and you leave the rest. And this soul in this film, the portrayal of this soul's journey, could not do that. I was quite touched by the portrayal. And you can't put the world to rights. You're not meant to put the world to rights. People are involved karmically in many complex situations that will not be easily resolved, whether it's individual, familial, tribal, national, international. All these levels of activity have their, shall we say, karmic knots that people are tied up in. And while I find it fascinating to watch, particularly for me, say the advent of the European Union and the current difficulties that it's facing. It's a growth project. It's an evolution project, and I've been involved on a sort of personal soul level in many lives in that European theater of activity. I'm not completely a European soul, but I am strongly one, and have soul memories of all the European wars, shall we say, that endless fighting that we did, 1,000 years ago, 600 years ago, 500 years ago. It went on for a long time, and one squabble just led to the next, and as one empire rose, another one sank down, and the lessons of empire and colonialism, and etc., etc., all were learned by a large number of souls. And now we're seeing a resolution to a higher level of all that conflict. And even though we see a resolution, a partial resolution, and we see the internationalism of the European Union, the embracing internationalism, it hasn't solved every problem, not by any means. It's taken everyone, well, many, many souls beyond the nationalism level, beyond that sense that the French are better than the Italians, or the Germans are smarter than the Dutch, or the British are destined to do this, that, and the other, and brought them to a level of sharing, of understanding that they're all participating in the same game, and that no one really needs to be the boss. Although, you hear these arguments about the Greeks saying that, the Germans are still the boss. So that still goes on, and I'm not, disputing the difficulties of the challenges of evening it all out. But I do see a resolution on a higher level of the spiral. And just to give one example, there's many, we could talk about Russia, China, North America. They're all going through their evolution too. And, when we talked to the anonymous globalist a few nights ago, we got his view on how that's going to evolve. And we could just as easily talk to, and maybe I will, a couple of guys, sitting in a cafe in Tel Aviv and reading the reading the New York Times and the Jerusalem Post and sharing their coffee and debating the same thing. They have their thoughts about how the globalists are affecting the world and whether their society is going to benefit or not benefit, or And I wouldn't say that their views, whoever they might be, would be any less relevant than the globalist, anonymous globalist that we spoke to. Many souls ponder these issues, and that's the to me, that's the marvelous thing about it. We are, whether we think it's going well or going badly, or terminally corrupt, or still has rays of hope within the thrust of the journey. It's all part of the process. It's all part of moving along and growing. And you could relate that to past life regression when you look at, you have a regression to the Roman civilization, the ancient Roman civilization, and you see yourself participating. You see your personal issues, the issues with your family, the economic issues. Some people do this. You go back to the same life 3 or 4 times and you ponder it in different ways. There's the first one where it's, oh, what a shock. I lived in ancient Rome and, I was this and I was that and my father did this. And then you go back and examine it more and more and you see different levels and different situations playing out, leading to, your current life and giving you certain attitudes. It's a bit like that. You look back on that and see the what you might think is a fairly primitive level of activity, whether you're in your family or in your society, in the political structure, in the military structure, and what they were trying to achieve. The American Empire has certainly been compared to the Roman one, as has the British, and and anyone with any sort of historical vision will give you some of that. But in your regression work, which you may experience, out of body, people have these visits when they're out of body, and suddenly they're looking at one of their own past lives, although it may take them a while to realize that. They're thinking, oh, what am I doing here? But a guide has taken you and pushed you from behind, and you're looking at this. And as I was saying with the European Union resolving certain issues and moving things up to a higher stage on the spiral of evolution, all of which is good and useful and true, they're still got plenty of problems. Not everything's been resolved, not by a long shot. So it's the same when you look back at, say, what'd you say, that Roman life? And you look at your issues that you worked with, things that you failed on, things that you didn't do, things that were embarrassingly bad to you now, cheating on your spouse or cheating on your business partner or poisoning someone or participating in the poisoning of someone so you can gain business advantage. And you may not have been a completely sort of selfish, wicked person. You may have just participated in this one thing that you're terminally embarrassed about now. And and then you look at that and you see who you are now, and you see, oh yes, I've moved on to a higher level of the spiral. I am a more mature, kinder, and intelligent person than I was then. But you've still got your issues. You've still got other things that you're working with, and so you don't sort of when you look at it in a balanced, sensible way, you see the issues and the unresolved issues and the things that could be done better and the things that maybe you are doing better right at this very time in your incarnation. And if you look at them in a balanced way, then there's no temptation to end it all in a fit of despair, as this character did, as many folk do when they feel overcome by the tensions and negativities of their journey. And so as consciousness projectors, I would just, at whatever level you're at, and it doesn't matter to me what level you're at, I'm just here to give information, and information that will aid you in your own work, in your own journey, by giving examples, not just of my journey, but of those that I've met and interacted with. And there is that understanding, and I'd like to communicate that carefully and without shadows of doubt. We're all doing good work, but we're not perfect yet. And when I say perfect, I mean not. I'm not meaning without fault. I'm meaning perfect in the sense of everything has been pursued and explored in its totality. Every role, every situation, every challenge, every ambition, every fear, every element of creativity. And then when one does that, the suggestion is that one graduates and doesn't return to incarnation. And that is probably true. It's not the only thing one can do. And I do get quite a bit of communications from people who feel that they can't possibly come back. It's just too much trouble and stress now. And I suggest to them, well, you may feel different after 50 years in paradise, and you probably will feel different. And I encourage them to explore that either in projection or meditation, and see how one's holiday in paradise smooths out the rough edges and gives you the energy and inspiration to come back and engage with the challenges one more time. Although I would add quite sincerely that you don't ever have to. There's no forcing you. No one can force you. No guide, no religious prophet. Nobody can force you to come back if you don't want to. It can be difficult resolving your karma if you've got plenty of personal karma with people you had difficulties with now, let's say, and in 100 years or whatever, they want to come back and work on their karma with you, or some of what they want to do is work on their karma with you, and you say, no, I'm staying here. I can't handle that shit again. That makes it slightly more difficult to resolve the karmic issues that you may have with them. And again, that just turns into another challenge, And but I would say that no one, they can urge you to come back, they can beg you to come back, oh please, 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 but they can't force you. Nobody can force you. It's all up to you. And so yes, watch out for that. This sort of that's messianic sense that you can heal everyone or help everyone or change the world. And it's very similar to political idealists. Young people who are genuinely filled with the energies of idealism and wanting to make the world a better place. And they work at it on whatever level they're capable of working on it, whether they're in diplomacy or in a charitable organization that's around the world, anything at all, Oxfam Doctors Without Borders, whatever. And then maybe by middle age, they've seen so much trouble and strife and ruthless killing of innocents that they succumb to despair and feel that it's all hopeless. And it can't seem that way. I mean, I've watched many, many, many wars and famines come and go, and I'm only 65. And it's just been endless since I've been a young adult. It's never stopping. You just go from one horrific civil war to the next on a planetary scale. And I can see how people working closely in these matters would get exhausted with despair. It's never going to end. Well, on one level, it never does end, because there's certain waves of souls that come in that are either addicted to that behavior pattern, or they want to get out of it but can't. Haven't got the energy or the wherewithal to, you know. And why does one incarnate as a soul? Because we're all souls here, into a country that is beset by civil wars and is liable to have another by the time you're 5. There's many, many, many millions of souls do this. And they either do it out of misplaced idealism. It's my country and we're going to make it better this time. Or ignorance. They reincarnate for love of family, souls that are in the family, and they just sort of ignore the tribal national situation, because the love of family, siblings, parents, grandparents, etc., supersedes everything else. And while that is, love of family is a wonderful thing, if it halts one's progress through constantly being in poverty-stricken, famine-stricken, war-stricken societies, I would question the the intelligence of that choice. And but again, souls are free to do what they wish. You can get loads of advice and ignore every last bit of it. So again, this sense of despair at the endless suffering and destruction on the planet. And of course, environmentalism is the latest version of this. The doom and gloom environmentalists, while they do have undeniable points, they're not, and they suffer from this notion that they do have the bigger vision. But it's generally scientific in nature, measuring this, looking at that, and convincing themselves through measurement and study, without the bigger vision of, suffering as a learning tool for souls on the planet, and examining, the past, and not just the geological past, in terms of how societies rise and fall, with the souls within them doing their own rising and falling within that greater cycle of rising and falling. They're not seeing the bigger picture as far as I'm concerned, although they think they are. And they're doing a fine job with what they're doing. We do have to pay attention to these issues. We do have to do something about it. But, when you read the environmentalists that will suggest, even the Paris Accord, it was too late anyway. It's all going to happen in terms of increased temperatures, etc., etc., and the challenges of that, increased water levels, etc., etc. You wonder, well, who's right in this particular issue? I don't think anyone's particularly right. I feel that we'll cope with the issues as they arise. And that's my examination of the human situation, is we cope with the situations as they arise. In ancient times or older times, destructive earthquakes would often be considered as God's judgment on a wicked society. The famous Lisbon earthquake of the 1500s, I think it was, produced some literature and some poetry and some judgments of by priests and bishops, etc., etc., that it was God's judgment on a wicked society. And because many, many, many people died, the place was just almost completely destroyed. And it's just held up as a historical example, and I would continue to do so. Um, Using nature and the forces of nature that are as unstoppable and as inevitable as anything else. It's it's like trying to stop the rain, without understanding that after a week of hot sunny weather, rain is the appropriate sort of nature's response to that. And sort of saying, "Oh, this heavy rain's terrible." Well, it may be a pain in the butt, but it's part of the process, as is the volcano and the tornado and everything else. Um, and so I see the environmentalists trying to stop or modify the inevitable. And why it's inevitable, well, I'm not saying I understand that, but it is inevitable, and I don't see the end of the world or anything like it. But I see, massive readjustments, and you know, let me use the Asian tsunami of some years back. I did do massively destructive, but we recovered. All the souls died and went to heaven, and some of them came back already, and some of them are still there. And there is one book that covers the spiritual preparations for this massive retrieval. They did know it was happening, and maybe I'll read from it again. I read from it in one of my other episodes several years ago, and not everyone has seen it. As far as I can see, there's only one book that deals with that, but the preparations were quite massive. There were many, many hundreds of souls, discarnate souls, ready to do retrieval work when this happened. They had plenty of warning. And so when I'm talking about the wider vision that the environmentalists think they have but don't, that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. And that's just one small detail, one small example. And so again, applying that wider vision to your own out-of-body experiences, the excitement and growth that one can achieve with this, and I see with the other, souls that I'm in contact with, either through out-of-body work or touching on Facebook and email, they are you're all achieving personal, realistic, personal goals, sorry, and advancing and expanding all the time. And this is a great thing. But we all have to cope with this notion, this understanding that suffering will not end, despair will not end, ruthlessness and cruelty will not end. They go on because other souls have a need to experience that. Or they think they have a need. They might be just stuck in a rut and have done it in many lives. That's all often the case, but it's not always the case. And so retaining that balanced understanding that suffering is not any more real than anything else, even though it looks more real. It slaps you across the face with its gruesomeness and its tragedy. But it's just as illusory as anything else on this plane. It's just a temporary condition that will be resolved, and maybe not resolved in the next 3 weeks of your life, but will be resolved. And that all souls, all sentient beings, are in charge of their incarnations and evolutions. So ameliorating suffering, helping it, out of its rut, is a wonderful thing to do. And I'm not suggesting that any of you stop that. Whatever your level of engagement is on that. But understand that you can only do so much. And accept that. And keep your serenity. keep your understanding of balance in the world. And by balance, I mean the balance of so-called good and so-called evil, the balance of so-called hot and so-called cold, the balance of so-called male, so-called female, the balance of democracy and so-called democracy and so-called, how shall we say, dictatorship of the elite. These are all balances. And you can't achieve a greater balance by eliminating one over the other or suppressing one over the other. I mean, this is a basic understanding. I don't think anyone's going to try and eliminate hot in order to be cold, or male. And I mean, there are suppressions of female around the world. We know that, and we are working to resolve that balance. Although in some societies it looks so endemic, one wonders if it could ever be resolved. But it will be at a certain point, and it might be on our next incarnations, not in this one. And that, again, is something to accept, that the work you're doing now, if you're doing work out of body, and some of you are, I know you are, because I've checked in on it, in these, shall we say, third world countries, where usually the rural areas, but quite often the urban areas, where women are treated almost like slaves, and if they don't obey, they're punished, often in the most ruthless and cruel of ways. And if you're working on those situations, and you, for example, you may be, I know some of you are doing this, visiting out of body some of these Asian women who are in these suppressive situations in their societies, and encouraging them to have strength to continue the struggle. Just hanging out with them in an out of body state and giving them strength. I urge you to, and if you continue to do so, don't give up. Even though that soul that you may be working with, or that group of souls of which she is one, may wind up, being imprisoned or punished or killed. It's just another step in the struggle. And but understand that these issues may not be resolved until you yourself have died, spent some time in paradise, and come back. And these issues are long term. And the energy and idealism of traveling in the astral body often precludes that understanding. That's maybe the essential part of what I'm trying to say here. You get so excited and thrilled about the ability to change things on a small way, you think you can change everything, and actually you can't. So it's accepting of that. And the same with political idealists. They learn that in order to achieve personal sanity or keep it, you have to accept very small increments of improvement, because that's about all you're going to get. The world doesn't change that fast or that radically. Civil strife ends in one country and then starts in another. It is a virus that goes around the world, like many other viruses. In fact, I think the virus metaphor is very useful. And whether, for example, the strife in the Balkans, the area we call the Balkans of 30 years ago, has been fully resolved or just had a lid put on it. I wouldn't make any definitive statement on that, but it's been partially resolved. Not to everyone's satisfaction, but we have a level of peace and cooperation going on there. And hopefully within the geographic area we call Syria, in 20 years we'll look back on that and go, yes, well, we've partially resolved that. I tend to see the country being split up into self-governing ethnic and religious minorities, and part of a larger federation perhaps. But I'm not a diplomat, that's just what I see. But anyway, when I look back at the 90s in the Balkans and how we felt about that, and then how we feel about Syria now, I see a great similarity. I, I do see this notion of the virus of civil war and strife and hatred, cruelty, moving around from one area to another. And that's really what it is. It's a virus. And people catch it, just like they catch the cold. And once they've got it, they've got it. And those of us that aren't participating on the outside looking in, we're like doctors and nurses trying to help out, or charity workers or whatever. And the same issues keep recurring and recurring. And I think that's about it for now. I would encourage all of you to maintain your stability and balance as we move forward on this journey. Because the excitements of small triumphs will encourage you to feel that much more can be accomplished, what is actually only a little bit can be accomplished. And despair is always a temptation. Disgust, despair, turning one's back is always a temptation. Turning into that, well, I'll just look after my own little castle now. That return to first chakra, young soul, kind of focused on the self stuff, that's always a temptation. And one sees it happening from here and there and around the world. But it doesn't solve anything. It re-insulates the ego from any meaningful growth. And I'm sure a lot of you see that even as I'm saying it. It's probably no revelation at all. But let me just underline that for the sake of the discussion. And I was going to talk about working at a long-term haunted house, as I was doing some work there tonight, earlier. And I'm not sure that's wise to talk about it today. I've rattled on too much about this other stuff. But some haunted houses can be a challenge because the haunting spirits are very tenacious and are very rooted energetically in the situation. And even if you knock the house down, it doesn't. They'll haunt the space because they don't see the physical knocking down of the house and either a new house being built or it being left empty. They are in the thought form of what they want to hang on to. And I'm sure you know this anyway, but I just wanted to give some details on that, and I don't really think I've left myself enough time to do so. So maybe we'll get to that tomorrow. Anyways, it's been a pleasure interacting with you, and I wish you all well for today, and see you soon.